Also with that too, the Heisman Trophy celebrate or announcement. I'm not going to bend over backwards for you. Figure it out, okay? I like the CFP way more than I like the I forgot to watch Michael Penix trophy. Like, that's basically what it was this season. What is up, everybody? It is Jake with Master Football back at it again. Happy Thursday. Thank you so much for being here. If you want to be up to date on all things college football, hit that red subscribe button. You will not be disappointed. Also hit the like button too, and follow on Twitter/X. That fam is growing. And if you're interested in EA college football content, we got a couple more videos coming out for that. Go over and subscribe to my other channel, the MF Film Room. But enough about all that. Let's get back to the college football content right now. All right, guys, here we are. We are coming up, and again, just a couple of days ago, we had one of the best days in college football history. Those games were fantastic. Alabama versus Michigan, Texas versus Washington, they were awesome there. Now, with that, there's a couple things we need to address here. And again, I'm not the only one that thinks these need to be addressed because going forward, this is more of an off-season topic of things right here, but I think that Joel Klatt brought up a really good video here where I articulated some of the things that need to change throughout college football to make it better. Again, we had one of the, if not the best and most viewed college football seasons of all time. We can do better. There's certainly a lot of things, a lot of holdovers from college football that are holding it back. Let's get into that video right now to address some of those because I'm telling you, this video was great. And we're going to go through a PowerPoint myself to kind of address some of the things he brought up and how I think they can be improved. The first one here is this video here. I want to make sure I could catch this here at the end here to make sure we had the specific improvements he had in college football here. And again, he had 6 of them right here off the top of his head. Now, with this, it's one of those things where he didn't go through each and every one of these things. He says these things need to be improved in order to improve the college football brand as a whole. First one here needs a commissioner or central governing structure, then NIL collectives, transfer portal, bowl season, CFA committee, and then the scheduling and the calendar. Go check out this video. It's only about 5 minutes. Basically goes through a couple of these things here and brings them up. But again, what I want to do is talk about my own analysis of this because I think that there's a couple things here he brings up that are good, a couple of them that are tied together. We need to discuss all of it together. Now, as much as, and I don't want to be disrespectful when I say this, as much as some of the older people that, Joel Klatt basically said that the only people right now that are upset with the direction of college football are the people that want to go and rent a video at Blockbuster Video and sit down with their family. Again, I do kind of miss Blockbuster Video, but at the same time, Gary Vee said it perfectly. Whereas, do I want to go to Blockbuster and rent a movie, or do I want to lie on my bed and press one darn button? I would rather lie on my bed and press one darn button. With that, there's some change. There's a little bit of destruction of the old world to create the new world. We all understand this, especially if you're in the business world. You understand that's how it kind of happens. To make an omelet, you need to crack a few eggs. Those eggs are the fact that, NIL is coming around, the transfer portal, the collectives. There's not very much rule there. There's some tampering. There's some things they need to iron out there. What I'm going to do though is go through a couple of those here, the 6 items that he brought up there, my own analysis of them and some of the suggestions, in addition to what I think is most likely to happen up soonest as opposed to what's going to happen latest. Let's get into that right now. All right, so here are with those 6 his improvements for college football. Like we said before, the commissioner, central governing structure, NIL collectives, transfer portal, bowl season, CFP committee, and then the scheduling and the calendar. Again, he didn't address everything per se, but I do want to make sure we can go through each of these things where I think the adjustments could be made. Let's get going. All right, so 3 of these are not as important. I won't say not as important. That's not the correct terminology here. I'll say they're not as addressable right away. There's going to be bigger issues to handle going forward. The first one there was the need for a commissioner slash a central governing structure. And again, you have to make sure that you have all of the teams in the conferences pulling in the same direction. One of the issues here is that unfortunately for Greg Sankey, he has only real allegiance to the SEC in the same way with Tony Petitti with the Big Ten and so on. But also, if you were to have something like that, you can make decisions without going to court because unfortunately right now, the only real things that are happening in college football are happening with court because the NCAA is just refusing to take the lead on a lot of these things here. Along with the next thing here is the NIL collectives. It would drastically hurt the tampering. Collectives are the tamperers. I hope that's a correct English there. But basically what's happening is the fact that a lot of NIL is not necessarily the top teams paying for players. NIL is the really, really, how do I say this? Heavily funded mid-tier teams that want to buy some of those players away from the top-level team. If you look at the transfer portal rankings right now, it is not Alabama, LSU, Georgia. It's Ole Miss, Colorado, Missouri's up there, Kentucky's pretty high, and so on. It's not always necessarily the top teams. It's really good teams, but teams that really want to be involved in that heavily. And then the last section here with this first part is the CFP committee. He didn't really address this in the video, but I would assume what he is talking about is transparency about what they're going for. The Florida State versus Alabama discussion. Trust me, I know that Florida State got shellacked in that game, that they had a zillion guys opt out, whatever the situation is. But again here, one of the most important things we have to discuss is, does the regular season matter? Are we just asking Vegas who should be in the national championship? Because if the argument is that they should select the most deserving or the best teams, that's a weird verbiage there. Again, it's the whole MVP thing. Is this the best player or is this the most valuable player? What are we doing there? Me personally, I think that, again, we're just going to ask Vegas, there's no need for a regular season. What we need to do here is just ask Vegas, and then they'll be able to select the best teams out there. But I think that the games on the field should matter. Florida State, with the injury to Jordan Travis, I totally understand the point that, it's, again, they probably would have lost to any team they played in the CFP, even if the players didn't opt out and it was just the quarterback. I totally get that perspective here. However, the more important thing is that, is the regular season just a throwaway then? Are we just going to say, okay, well, first 1, 2, 3 in the SEC, they're in, and everybody else, figure it out? I think that the regular season needs to matter more than it even does right now, despite the fact that right now it looks like the CFP is just asking Vegas who they think is going to be in it. Either way, that's my addressment there. We're going to go on to the more important ones here, the ones I think that can be addressed sooner rather than later. All right, so for the ideas of the second part, we have the transfer portal, bowl season, and scheduling / calendar. Now, these are all three connected at the same time. I'm going to do my best to kind of address, because again, they all bleed over into each other so much to the point to where you can't not talk about one without talking about the other. The first one here, and it's a very, very easy statement to make. Right now in college football, the postseason, free agency, pursuit of active players, and the draft, pursuit of high school players, future players, should not all be at the same time. Unfortunately, that's what we have right now, where during December, can you imagine if you were a conference championship team that had a bowl game early on in the college football bowl season? So think about that. During December, you've got to recruit for, the players on your team to prevent them from leaving, all the transfer portal players. You got to recruit your high school players that you're trying to get. You got to potentially recruit new players from the transfer portal to get. You've got to not only prepare for your conference championship game, you also got to prepare for a bowl game, and there's no additional time. It is an absolute mess. It needs to be adjusted right away. I talked with my roommate here, a couple different ideas here. And he brought the first idea. I brought up the second idea. The first one here was the transfer portal should have certain limits applied to it. I do think in the same way with coaches, how often you can recruit, where you can go here, blah, 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 all of those little stipulations about things they can do throughout there. I think some of those need to be applied, not necessarily one-to-one, but they need to be applied to the transfer portal. You could have a situation where it could be one free entry, no matter what. The transfer portal is just always, always, always open. You can open it whenever, as opposed to whether or not somebody is immediately eligible. That can be discussed. But what if the transfer portal was basically whenever you want to? You can enter, but remember, you one free entry, regardless, no questions asked. Then no matter what, you have to sit one season if entered. Because JT Daniels playing for 4 different teams, I'm sorry, that was not mental health issues. It was not personal health. It was just because he wanted to go somewhere where he was going to play. USC to Georgia to West Virginia to Rice is not a mental health thing. It is not I need to be closer to my family. It's none of that crap. He just wanted to play. I know that's an extreme example, but again, I think that if we had some sort of limitations on that, you would allow somebody to be able to go somewhere. Oh, this isn't good for me. I want to take my one time to move. You decide to move, and then you go on from there. I think that's totally fair. Another one that I had was you can have unlimited entry into the portal. You could literally do it every single year, no matter what. You want to leave, you want to leave, you want to leave, you want to leave. You could do it. However, the portal is only in June of that current year. If you sign a letter of intent, you need to be at that school from July 1st of that calendar year to June 30th of the next calendar year. You have to truly honor that scholarship. What that would do, one, it would make sure that these players who leave from the NIL collectives, oh yeah, we're gonna get poach this guy after the season is done. Well, you got to wait until after spring practice is done. You have to give somebody a full year, because the college football season, or basically the athletics season, runs from July 1st up until June 30th of that next year. I think that a scholarship should be that entire time, because some schools have semesters, some have trimesters, some have quarters, and they all have different times, start times, blah, 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 whatever it is. I do think that if you do something like this, again, the penalty would be if somebody wants to enter the transfer portal after sitting out a season, the penalty would no spring ball. But again, July 1st, you're effective, you can walk on campus and be there. I really like that idea. And again, if you were a high schooler who enrolls early, you could, again, with the Jaden Rashada situation with Jaden Rashada, he out of high school signed with Florida, was offered and guaranteed a 4-year, $13 million NIL deal that after he signed his letter of intent fell through. If you were to have something like that happen with Jaden Rashada, he's an early entry into Florida, so he has his high school season in the fall. On January 1st of 2024, he enters into the port, or he goes to Florida, and then by February they say, oh, there's no NIL money. Well, at the end of that year, he could leave out there. So that's what I think it should happen. I think for early enrollees, you can leave in June. For everybody else, you can leave in June. But again, you can only leave in June. Your scholarship is for 1 year at that school. That's it. That's what I think should happen. All right, and continuing on here, again, we want to make sure this is clear. And this is more about the scheduling the bowl season and the calendar, not necessarily applied to the transfer portal here. But I personally think that one of the dumbest things in the world is the fact that, and Joel Klatt even mentioned this, the problem with college football is that it peaks around Thanksgiving, and then right the week after Thanksgiving, and then it dies for 3 weeks. And basically all we talk about is nothing. We talk about the Cheez-It Bowl and the Pop-Tarts Bowl. I'm not trying to throw those bowl games down. Trust me, plenty of those are entertaining. But I want to make sure that we can address that. I think that the CFP needs to start immediately. What it should happen here, so as an example, it should start immediately after the conference championship week, because it's going to be 12 teams, so the top 4 seeds get a bye. There's 8 games, there's 8 teams, there's 4 games. CFP dies in early to mid-December. This would prevent that. The college football season should run like this. December 1st and 2nd is conference championship week. December 12th and 13th is the first round games. There would be 4. December 19th and 20th, those are the Fridays and Saturdays. Second round games, there would be 4. December 27th, there'd be semifinal games, there'd be 2. And then January 1st, I actually love the idea of the Rose Bowl being the national championship. It's the oldest game. It would solve a lot of problems in that respect. Also, the fall college football season would be done on January 1st. We wouldn't have to wait until potentially January 20th is what they're potentially talking about next season, which is wild. And you think about high school recruiting, college recruiting, everything like that. If the season was done on January 1st, you could have a transfer portal for the first 2 weeks of January or something to that effect. I think that would solve a lot of problems there. Again, what would be hurt by this? Army Navy is going to have to move. I don't care. Okay, I'm if I have to sacrifice Army Navy for the season being done earlier, I'm totally doing it. Sorry, Army Navy, or just make it a conference game and just figure it out. Again, I'm not gonna bend over backwards for the Army Navy game. Also, with that too, the Heisman Trophy announcement. I'm not going to bend over backwards for you. Figure it out. Okay. I like the CFP way more than I like the I forgot to watch Michael Penix trophy. That's basically what it was this season. All right, now part 4 here, and this gets into a little bit more difficulty here. Again, I mentioned here the fact that, having a commissioner is going to be a hard thing. The scheduling thing is going to be hard too, but I think there could be a nice middle ground here. So scheduling needs to happen outside of AD offices to a degree. Obviously, they need to be able to control things that they can control. But what happened here is, what if there was 1 week for many different conferences that was blocked out permanently for all teams and conferences? It's just this Friday and Saturday is just blocked out in 2024, 2025, 2026, 27, 28, 29, and just going forward, it's just blocked out. You tell the conference commissioners, don't schedule anything. Tell the schools, block everything out. We will put a game on your schedule for you. Rotating conferences should play each other during this week according to previous season's performance, like the NFL has. The way the NFL works is that the AFC West and the NFC East play each other. First place plays first place, second, third, fourth, and so on. So right here you say if a conference would have a different number of teams, then some independent teams or G5 conferences could fill the void. As an example, let's just say the Big Ten's got 18, the SEC has 16, those two are playing each other. Well, the Big Ten has got those additional 2 at the very bottom there that don't have teams to play. Well, then what would happen there is that they would find a way to get those made up for with, let's just say, some top-level Sunbelt teams or some independents. The teams will probably sign up for those slots is what I'm thinking out there. Or it could just be a permanent agreement between certain leagues. Again, what you would want to have is maybe you have in college basketball, there's the Big Ten SEC, or there's the ACC Big Ten Challenge. It could be, the Big 12, Pac 12, whatever it is. I know the Pac 12 too. We all understand that's kind of in flux at this point. But the thing about that is there's a couple different solutions you could do. As an example, let's say there was an SEC ACC challenge and the second place team was Georgia and the second place team in the ACC was Georgia Tech. Well, they already play at the end of the season. You would just flip it. Georgia would play the third place team and Georgia Tech would play the third place SEC team. There'd be pretty easy solutions there to make sure you don't have to play the same team twice or something like that. Remember here, ultimately, the FBS needs to separate themselves from the rest of college sports broadcasting in order to return to a more regionality for Olympic sports, but retain the conference realignment for football's sake, because conference realignment is not happening because they want Nebraska volleyball to play UW volleyball. Probably a pretty good game, but I'm saying here, we all know this is happening because of football. So if we separate the FBS from that, again, it still would be under Title IX scholarship requirements and things like that, but it would be its own entity itself. And then UW, volleyball and softball doesn't have to go to Rutgers and so on. Collective bargaining is a long way off, but it should happen. And again, that is one thing that he mentioned here. He's like, it's going to take a while, but it should get to a collective bargaining / revenue sharing, because then all this stuff is handled between a negotiation. And we don't have to worry about the courts. We don't have to worry about the school that, this school wants this school wants that, whatever it is, it'll all be handled that way. Now, my opinion here, what is most likely to happen first here, the first one is the CFP committee being addressed, because it's like, okay, what are we doing here? Ask the CFP committee, does the regular season matter, or are we just having Vegas set this up for us? Because if we're just having Vegas set this up for us, then why are we playing the games? That's the first thing. I think they have the most control of that. Next, I think, is the calendar. I put scheduling and calendar. I think scheduling is actually a long way off, because I think that those ADs are going to be really, really slow to adjust here. But the calendar, I think, could be something that they could address sooner. But the calendar gets addressed with the portal and with bowl season. Boom, boom, boom. I think with the bowl season, the sponsors eventually are going to be like, okay, why are we sponsoring all these games? Because all of your players are opting out. Why would we want to sponsor this game if nobody's going to actually freaking watch it? Again, I think it's going to hurt the product there, so that we know the conference realignment is happening because of the broadcasting partners. I think eventually the sponsors are going to be able to flex their muscle on that with the calendar of the season. Then I think fifth, the need for a commissioner. That's going to take a long wait. There's going to be a long time until the Big Ten and the SEC are aligned on something. And the NIL collectives, that's the worst. There's a reason why the NCAA is basically begging for, top-down regulation from this, is because they can't handle it right now. There's legitimate tampering, and there's nothing to address it right now. Again, that's the most far off. I think the CFP committee could be addressed first, but those NIL collectives, it is the Wild West out there. So Joel Klatt brings up a lot of good points in that video. Me personally, man, I think that what we need to do, I would love to have the national championship as the Rose Bowl every year. It's awesome. I know that people say, oh my God, it's California. Oh my God, it's hard to get to. It's on a golf course. The San Gabriels are in the background. It is the granddaddy of them all. It is the best venue. You have that. You move the transfer portal to after the season is done. You don't want to, because right now in college football, the postseason, the draft, and free agencies are all at the same time. It is an absolute mess. They need to clean that up. Move the CFP games early. I'm sorry if I move the Army-Navy game or the Heisman Trophy presentation. Again, to make an omelet, you got to crack a few eggs. I'd rather crack those eggs, move the CFP earlier, and bring college football back to early and mid-December and not just late December. All right, guys, get in the comments and let me know what you think about all those situations. Also, please like, share, comment, and subscribe. Follow me on X/Twitter as well. But I'll see you guys later. I am out.